That's exhausting. Yeah, sorry for that interruption towards the end there.
No worries. It happens. We're used to it.
Well, I love that. I love that show. I like the whole show. I think there was I lost it. You go ahead with whatever you want.
Well, it's interesting. The woke movement is a victimization type of a movement where, you're the victim, and there's no happiness that can come from the idea of the fact that you're a victim. That steals the happiness right out of you. You're not focused on the agape form of love whatsoever. And in fact, what it raises is bitterness and resentment. And, when I look at that school and the before picture where they were fighting all of the time, and you think about most of those students were Black, and, in the Black community, the society at large is trying to say that, hey, you're a victim and you don't have any hope. And really, if you read between the lines on some of these things, and many times you don't even have to read between the lines. It's basically saying that you don't have the mental capacity to actually achieve because you're second class in every single way. And so really it steals all of the hope and the joy and the love right out of your heart. And what else can you do but fight or do drugs or get into criminal activity because, the world's going to end and you better get yours. That's kind of the mentality that's happening here. And I think I love that a simple change, the way that those dads had done, made all of the difference. I mean, it was day and night, and how encouraging. And I hope people see that and take that to heart and get involved with love. Well, that's what really needs to happen.
And I remember exactly what I wanted to say.
Great. I knew it would help.
Yeah, because you just said it again. To wrap it all up, is the woke movement is they always say white patriarchal society, and it's really an anti-man movement, and it's supposed to be everything's all about men and all that. Well, this just showed the importance of dads, men, the patriarchal element that they want to remove. And what happens when you remove it? Well, you get the lost kids and violence and all of that other thing. We need our dads. We all need our dads, and we need them in our society. So I'm a little tired of that ass backwards movement, to say the least.
I got to tell you, Barry, it's really crazy. And hey, I had some things on another level here regarding the news that's out there today. It's kind of crazy. Ever since we had our show last Wednesday, it's actually kind of overwhelming, all of the things that have happened since then, and it's coming at us like machine gun fire. But I had another video that I wanted to share here, and this is kind of startling. Apparently, we have at least 60,000 migrants that are heading towards the border right now. These people are not from Mexico. They're from several countries, some South American countries, Hades as well. So you have Haitians in here. You have people really from all over the world that are in this crowd. It's very organized. Apparently it was set up with QR codes. The organizers set these people up with QR codes. This is them at the Mexican border right now, and they're coming our way. Sorry. Let me just turn that sound down.
Yeah. I want to mention.
This is up breaking through the line.
This is awful. I have a story bookmarked here from the Washington Examiner: illegal border crossings set to be the worst in U.S. history.
Yeah, so far we have had close to 2 million people that we've actually documented that have come across our border since the beginning of the year. We've never seen numbers like this really in our lifetime. This has been absolutely surreal. Our federal government, their first and foremost responsibility is to protect our borders.
Right.
And we have, I mean, to me, not doing your first and foremost responsibility is a dereliction of duty. And the president himself actually takes an oath when he's sworn in to protect the Constitution. And at the center of the Constitution is this. We saw President Trump get impeached for saying, hey, you got to do an investigation on this guy. I think he's actually been, taking money out of the till here. And he got impeached for that. Okay. This is way worse. If you're not actually protecting our border and you're letting people in, we're seeing stories now where there are people that live on the border that are crying for help and nobody's lifting a finger to help them. Their land, their resources, their life savings is being ruined, and it's vanishing in thin air. And the federal government is treating them like they're the bad guys.
And in response to that, I remember seeing that Ted Cruz said he proposes a program where they bus these people to Vermont, Bernie Sanders, and somewhere else like
Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah. And I think that makes a very good point, because all of a sudden it becomes serious for them. But the worst thing that happened was that they politicized this with the Trump thing. Anything that Trump stood for, all of a sudden they just went against. Now, Barack Obama and Biden were all about the borders and controlling the immigration problem many years ago. So
they were.
The fact that they're going to destroy our own country over politics is once again this really sickening thing that's going on.
Well, that's exactly what's happening, Barry, is that it will destroy our country. And really, what is the plan? Why are they doing this? Well, it seems pretty obvious to me that one of the central items in this plan is to allow these people to be able to vote. And when you have one party out there that's saying, hey, we're going to give you money, not only does that attract more people to the southern border, but it also causes these people to vote perpetually for those people in that particular party. So what's really happened here is really Orwellian. It is to keep the party in power perpetually. And in order to do that, they have to crush the lives of the people that have been paying taxes all of this time. So there's no loyalty to the hand that's fed them all of this time. Really, the only thing that's important is keeping power. Now, in the news,
that's the prime directive.
It really is. In the news, what we just saw in the news, I'm going to actually turn to the article that I have here on this, because it's really, this one is shocking. This just came out yesterday, and let's see if we can pull this up here. President Biden is looking to pay families who are separated at the border. I'm just going to read this. The Biden administration is in talks to offer, this is from the Wall Street Journal. The Biden administration is in talks to offer immigrant families that were separated during the Trump administration around $450,000 a person in compensation.
What?
Let me just read that again, because when I first saw this,
what's your source on that? Because I would really corroborate the heck out of that before.
Yeah, this is coming from the Wall Street Journal.
Oh my God.
This is the Biden administration is in talks to offer immigrant families that were separated during the Trump administration around $450,000 a person in compensation, according to people familiar with the matter, as several agencies work to resolve lawsuits filed on behalf of parents and children who say the government subjected them to lasting psychological trauma. The U.S. Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services are considering payments that could amount to close to $1 million a family, though the final numbers could shift. The people familiar with the matter said, many families would likely get smaller payouts depending on their circumstances. That's the information that they have. Dan Crenshaw added to this at for perspective, if a service member is killed in action, their next of kin gets an insurance payment of $400,000. Let that sink in. So here's what I get out of this is, I pay my taxes. I've worked very hard in my lifetime. $450,000 is quite a bit of money to earn, but it's quite another thing to be able to save up $450,000. And when I think about the taxes that I paid over the years, really in my career, it's been blood, sweat, literally, and tears. And there's been a lot of risk. There's been a lot of time spent away from home. There's been
sacrifice.
Uncertainty is sacrifice. There's nothing certain about those kinds of things. When you're a salesperson, your whole career is what you sell. And here we're going to take that tax money and give it to people that broke the law coming over the border and didn't do anything for the country whatsoever, didn't invest in the country whatsoever. And we're going to reward them in this area because, this was federal law on how things were going. And it's also very interesting, that whole kids in cages thing that wasn't started by the Trump administration. It was started by the Obama administration. And they actually changed that whole thing so that kids wouldn't be separated. Anyhow, this whole thing is infuriating.
Yes, it
is.
is.
Something like this is actually even being talked about. But the problem is that this isn't something that we have control over. This is something that the department, all these bureaucracies, the U.S. Department of Justice, the Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, they can do this without any kind of the people saying we want to do this. And to your point earlier, this is an indictment by this administration of the previous administration. This is getting back at Trump
with our tax dollars,
our money. I mean, what?
And that's why they have to do things like try to let more people out of prison, bring illegal immigrants in, and pay them off and stuff like that for the votes. They desperately need the votes because their policies are losing the common people. I mean, they barely pull off these elections, and they got to jump through a lot of unscrupulous loops in order to do it, in my opinion.
Well, it's and you're seeing it now in Congress where they have the bill, the People's Vote, which would be a national law that would take away the states' rights to control their elections, and mail-in voting is a big part of that whole thing. And we're seeing how that's turning out across the country right now. I'm concerned about this election that's happening in Virginia because of the mail-in voting laws that are out there and how easily manipulated these systems are. We're seeing a court case that's bubbled up where the voting and this is just at the state level, but the voting administration there in Virginia is being accused of letting people vote without sharing the last four digits of their social security numbers, meaning that any person that doesn't have a social security number, somebody that's illegally in the country, can vote. And they want to make that a federal law. And we've seen how states that have passed those laws, namely Georgia and Texas, have been in the crosshairs of the federal government. And I think there's a pretty interesting thing that's happened as a result that makes me chuckle. But we remember earlier in the summer, the All-Star game that was going to be in Atlanta, that Stacey Abrams and her cohorts helped to arrange and have moved to Colorado. So this was because this was a prejudice thing that was aimed at preventing Black people from voting. And in here, they moved the All-Star game from Atlanta, which is 54% Black population, meaning that most of the business owners that were going to capitalize off of that were Black. And they moved it to Colorado, which is something like 9% black,
Right.
and the voting laws in Colorado were way more restrictive than the ones that had just been passed in Atlanta.
Right.
This was a dastardly deed that happened here. But then, of course, Texas passed their laws. Well, they've been in the crosshair, and here the World Series is happening right now. And of course, when the World Series is in your town, in your state, you stand to way more revenue than the All-Star game did. And here it happens. It's between the Astros and the Braves. Texas and Georgia get the exclusive rights to the World Series. And I just think that's poetic justice. And in your face, Stacey Abrams.
No, I guess so. I didn't know that the World Series was even going on right now. I didn't know it was between those teams either.
Well, and think about it too. It's one of the teams is called the Braves, and of course now in the news is they do the famous tomahawk chop, and everybody's all ticked off about that, and the fans are going crazy with that whole tomahawk chop thing, and it's like, come on, really? That's the big news.
We have real things to worry about here. That's awful. I hate that.
I think it is too. Hey, well, what about the Cleveland Guardians? I mean, what do you think about? I mean,
there is a lawsuit going on over that right now because I saw a quick news clip. There's a soccer, like an amateur soccer team or something called the Guardians. And he's like, our website used to get like 12 hits a week, and now it's being torn down by hundreds of thousands of hits and confusion. And they can't just go and take our name like that and bastardize it. It's not right. Just because we're a little guy, just because we're a nonprofit. And anyways, I wish that I hope that they win. These little guys do win. I hate the whole woke idea of taking away the celebration of Native Americans in this regard. But I want to say we have a victory here. I'm going to share this real quick, Merle. We have a little victory here. This white male marketing VP in North Carolina at a North Carolina hospital wins $10 million. And I don't like this, in quotes, reverse discrimination payout. Because I believe discrimination is discrimination.
Yeah, right? I agree with you on that, Barry.
So he was replaced by 2 women, one of whom is Black, as part of the diversity and inclusion program, which is a big problem, as we're seeing with the National School Board. But it also is in a lot of big companies. So this has been outed as a victory. Okay, so this is wrong. They said that I'm just paraphrasing in here, but they said that they were investigated. Well, why did they terminate this guy? And they said, well, because of not good performance or something. And it was all proven right here, if you see it on the screen, that was all BS. He was replaced out of a mandate, discrimination against white males, which I've seen throughout my lifetime. By the way, I have tried to secure government contracts in the past. And I even went to Columbus and took this training on how you do that. And finally had people whisper to me, like, what are you doing, man? You're a white man. You're never going to land one of these contracts ever. It's
terrible.
It is terrible. So I can't compete in that. And, but, I am all for it. Don't get me wrong. If you want to call it privilege or whatever, I've never felt really privileged, as I've worked very hard in this career my whole life. But I will absolutely admit that there are underprivileged people in this society. If you grow up in a very bad neighborhood and you're surrounded by bad role models and peers, you are definitely at a disadvantage. And I am all for creating programs that incentivize these people to turn that around, to help. Here's what I'm trying to say. I'm all about picking people up, helping pick people up, not good with pushing people down, which is what these woke programs are all about.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I just think that the label of white privilege is a disgusting thing.
Yeah, it's racist.
I think that it is racist. It's a way of putting a derogatory label on someone that would discredit them and their ideas going forward, and they're doing that on purpose. Obviously, there's if I just go back to Martin Luther King and him in his I Have a Dream speech, and how he was talking about his little children, and that he had a dream that one day they'd be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And I subscribe to that. I don't look at people as what nationality or color they are. I look at them as people, and I love people, and it's bad that they're trying to cause us to see things through these other glasses. It just doesn't make sense that they're doing it that way, but it's crushing the love that's out there. That is for sure. I've always wanted to see my own self. I don't see myself as a particular race all the time. I see myself as Merle. And I until somebody puts that in my face, I just don't think about my race whatsoever. Obviously, I have a race, but that's not what defines who I am. I'm Merle. That's it. I'm a man named Merle, and that's all there is to it. And I wish more people would look at life that way and not get fooled into this hatred mentality, because that's all about.
Yeah, and I think you said it right. So the intent with all the woke movement is to be anti-racist, but all they do is fan the flames of racism. Everything becomes about race and gender, and it's like, oh, why don't you guys relax? Because we were on a great trajectory for, and have been, the most progressed nation in the world as far as race relations go. And if you want to, as a Black person, go to another country and try it out, you certainly can do that. But I think you're going to end up right back here. I mean, that's why everybody's trying to get in this country by illegal methods, if not legal.
Yeah, it's too bad that these organizations that were supposed to help us with race relations have turned out to be the biggest race baiting organizations that are out there. Case in point, this week in the news, the NAACP is in the news. Here's the headline: is the NAACP urges athletes not to sign with teams based in Texas, none of which have anything to do with politics. And from the story from ABC News, the NAACP on Thursday called on members of the NBA, WNBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB to consider not signing with teams in Texas as a protest against several controversial laws, the Voting Act being one of them, recently in the states. The other one has to do with the coronavirus pandemic and how they're handling it there, as well as the latest abortion laws that are proposed to be passed in Texas as well. What does that have to do with race relations? I don't know, but these people are basically whoring themselves out to the woke movement, and they have stolen their own credibility by doing that.
Agreed. I want to try to find something because it was hysterical. Have you seen Lightfoot in the news?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Did you?
I think I know what you're talking
parade?
About. Oh no, parade?
Oh, well, I read about this. I watched this video and completely forgot about it. And so I don't know. Maybe I'll find it here in a minute. So she went on and on. Somebody pulled up a Twitter thing of hers, and she's super into the woke thing and victim mentality,
to say the least.
Right. And so something happened with the WNBA championship. They had a WNBA championship parade I think she created a parade for the WNBA in Chicago, and they showed the video from a skyscraper that looking down on these 4 buses with all these women in it. Yay, no one there.
No,
No
I
one
saw
there.
that. I saw that. It was pathetic,
It was
actually.
really bad. It was funny though. I mean, hey, I don't care if you love the WNBA. I don't. I don't know what to say about it. So to try to
It's not exciting.
it's not exciting at all. And so don't make everybody else feel bad for not being excited about it.
Well, look what they're competing against. I mean, look, the fact is that you're not going to see the same kind of action that you would see in the NBA. And there's no slam dunking. It's not the quick thing. It's just not where it's at. But then you look at, for instance, compare that sport to gymnastics. Do you watch male gymnastics? I don't.
No.
It's just not the thing. But women's gymnastics, that's one of my favorite sports out there.
It's way cool.
If when the Olympics are on, that's really the only thing I want to watch.
It's riveting. It's absolutely.
It is. Yeah. The drama is unbelievable, and these women are super talented.
What they can do,
what they're doing,
amazes me.
Men can't do what they can do.
Right.
I mean, look at those uneven bars. Can you see a man trying to do that? I mean, that's gonna kill you.
Right.
And these women are spectacular athletes, and that's really what the deal is there. It has nothing to do with well, I don't like women, but I like men. It has to do with the entertainment aspect of the whole thing. And it's too bad that it gets taken away like that.
Because it shines the light on the difference between a meritocracy and equity.
That's right.
And the equity movement. Right. It doesn't make any
sense. I loathe the equity movement. I'm all about equality of opportunity, and the meritocracy. You eat what you kill.
Yeah.
Basically, nobody gets a free lunch. You have to earn it, and that's how it goes. But today, this equity thing. And by the way, speaking of equity, we're seeing this in this Build Back Better bill. Apparently, equity is mentioned in that over 50 times, and this is a really interesting thing that's happening. I'm hoping that this whole thing crashes and burns, because much like what I was talking about George Orwell, and within the Communist Party there were the Stalinists and the anti-Stalinists, and they fought each other and pretty much crushed each other, and the fascists ended up winning that war. I'm hoping something like that. I don't want the fascists to win, but I'm hoping that they just self-destruct here, because what's happened is that there's been some compromises that were made to bring that bill down from $3.5 trillion to $1.7 trillion. I really think that was a trick of the pen on that whole thing, because there were some programs that were cut out, but basically the programs were on a 10-year trajectory. And they just shorten the trajectory so they could just renew these programs, and they just kind of sharpened their pencil to make it look like it was less money than it is. However, and so now we're seeing Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema coming back into play and supporting these things. Well, that just made the squad and the ultra progressives in the Democrat Party feel like they lost. And now they're saying that they're not going to support the bipartisan infrastructure plan if they don't change it back to what they wanted. So we'll see what happens. I know that from conservative media, they're salivating over this whole thing and saying, oh, look at what's happening over here. But then I was reading the New York Times regarding this whole thing, and they're like, this is the sausage making. Nobody wants to see how the sausage is made in this whole bill process, but this is how things get done. So who knows what's going to happen here? I just think that the main thing that's going to happen is the American people are going to lose. Because here in the news, we're seeing President Biden wants to double the funding to the IRS. And here's from the story coming from Town Hall. The White House has released a new spending framework. This is outside of the bill, but it's to bolster the president's Build Back Better agenda before he heads overseas on Thursday afternoon, which was yesterday. The revenue portion of the plan shows the framework doubles the funding for the IRS. And this is how they're going to pay for this whole thing, is by scrutinizing everything that you and I do. and milking every cent out of you possible.
Oh, yeah.
Doubling the size of the IRS is unprecedented. We've never seen this before, but this
By
is,
the way,
we saw.
if we went to the free tax system, we could dismantle the IRS altogether.
Yeah,
Meaning,
in fact,
we just do sales tax. That's it. Boom. That's it.
And you know what, Barry? It's interesting that you're saying that, because according to the Constitution, before the amendment was passed in the 19 teens, the only way that you could collect taxes is off of sales tax. Or
makes sense to me.
And so it totally makes sense, and it was illegal to tax people on their income. In fact, it makes it very clear that you cannot do that because it would be a penalty on your hard work. Mm-hmm. And all of that changed under this plan that happened in the 19 teens, which changed everything in the world. But you're right. I mean, you want to right size things and make things fair. If you want to make the rich pay their fair share, I mean, you can't think of a better way to make the rich pay their fair share. Right. And everybody will pay proportionally to what they purchase. That's really the only fair way to
take away all of the bureaucracy and the IRS and related organizations, which are no longer needed, which is why that's never going to happen. But and then you could reduce taxes. Because they're such a tax suck in and of themselves. You can reduce tax spending so much right there. You reverse all of the problems that we have in these regards with that.
Well, and it also bolsters our capitalist type of society as well. Is that government then would have to really line up with what's good for the people in order to keep that stream of income coming in. It lines everything up. And it was also taxes were also another tax that was allowed before this new income tax and the IRS was formed. But you take a look at the IRS. I mean, nobody likes the IRS. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to double the size of the IRS. You look at this whole plan where they were going to scrutinize your bank accounts if you were going to do $600 of withdrawals. Well, they've backed off of that, and they said, okay, no, it's really $10,000 now. But here's the gaffe on that whole thing. It's $10,000 worth of financial activity per year. Very few people spend less than that per year through their bank accounts. Right back to
going right up the wazoo of the little guy. Yeah,
it's exactly and you need to have a doubling of the IRS to be able to scrutinize at that level. And so that's really what's happening, is that back to 1984, Big Brother is watching you, and they'll weaponize the IRS to make that happen.
Hey, I wanted to bring something up that is going to be really hard for me to, and people listening aren't going to like it one bit either, but it needs to be said. It needs to be brought to light. I was listening to Crystal and Sagar the other morning at the gym, and they were talking, you probably have heard about this, but they were talking about, it's been exposed, the horrific experimentations done on some animals, such as they talked in particular beagle puppies that are, their heads are put in cages so that they can't defend themselves, and their vocal cords are cut so you can't hear their cries as they are exposed to these mass amounts of sand fleas so that they could be studied so that we can cure something or another for humans. Absolutely, thoroughly disgusting beyond belief. Of course, Fauci's implicated in this as well, where a lot of the fuel comes from in the story, of course, because if you can make it political, it gives it more fuel. But I think Crystal made a good point, saying that it's said that because of the adaptations of technology today, it's not necessary that we experiment on these animals anymore, that through technology, we can still find the results we're looking for. So they went into great detail about these horrors in that podcast episode. And I literally thought I was going to throw up right there in the gym. I had to fast forward through when they started recapping some of it. I just think it's necessary that I put it out there, that we put it out there, and it disgusts me.
I'm glad that you did, because when you think about Dr. Fauci, he is absolutely behind this experimentation. He has been lifted to nearly a godlike status here within the country, and it's really been a terrifying thing to really look at, how this person, an unelected official, has so much power over our society at large. But in the
left know none of this about him. They don't know it. In mainstream media, all they're being fed is Time magazine articles with his doctored up photoshopped photos in there. It's disgusting. They're getting told hero stories all day long. Talk to somebody on the left and tell them some of the things that we discuss about gain of function research funding and all. They don't know what gain of function research is.
Well, that's a shame, because of course, the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, actually admitted this past week, since our last show, that gain of function research was being financially sponsored by them, to really, it is an indictment of Dr. Fauci and what he said to Rand Paul on at least 2 occasions in Congress, that was absolutely not happening. And that I remember the line being, "You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything." And there is absolutely no gain of function research going on. Well, the NIH came out and said that that indeed was going on, and that they were using the spike protein and research to try to find out if that the spike protein could be enhanced to latch on to human beings. And that's exactly what gain of function research is. So now you've got a group of Republicans that are calling for Fauci's resignation. Let's see, spike proteins from naturally occurring bat coronaviruses circulating in China were capable of binding to the human ACE2 receptor in a mouse model. And that came directly from the NIH. So what's going to happen to Dr. Fauci, Barry? What do you think?
Well, I don't know, because a very important point is they took that same video on leftist media like CNN. I've seen this, and they cropped it out and put it under the headline of how Dr. Fauci put Rand Paul in his place. And they go right to him saying, however, he said, "Congressman, you do not know what you're talking about." And, that was a really pre-planned stage statement. And I mean, they clearly knew that they were going to take that moment out. It was really, well, if you saw it from that angle, you got a completely different view of that news.
It's really interesting. And I actually asked that question in jest because I don't think anything's going to happen to Dr. Fauci.
All right. He's a deity again. We're back to that. He's being held up as a true hero.
And I don't think, and going back to that whole thing with Merrick Garland and that weaponizing the FBI against parents, they have him up in front of Congress right now. And you just played the Tom Cotton one. Well, Ted Cruz had him up there yesterday, and it just seemed like a real beating that was happening against Merrick Garland and all this terrible stuff. But I don't think anything's going to happen to him either.
I don't either. And Fauci, back to that, just perjured himself in front of Congress. It's right there on YouTube. I mean, it's proof. Gain of function research. They funded it. He just tried to play a little word switcheroo on what gain of function. There's a lie.
They knew exactly what they were doing, and they also know who their friends are in the media and how they can get away with just about anything right now. And here's what really bothers me, Barry, is that you've got. I'm not trying to impugn these Republicans by saying that they're just they have a nefarious plan, but I mean, how come, and we see this with tech as well, they pull up the big tech people and everybody yells at them and they just get more money, they get stronger. So if it seems like from the Republican side of things that they're a part of this, like here's what you're doing. You're putting on a big show. So somehow when I see this, I'm going to be like, yeah, you got them. Yeah. And really you didn't get them. All you did was you said a bunch of stuff that would cause me to potentially reelect you. That's all that just happened right there.
You hit it on the head right there.
And here's the thing is that I'm a conservative. I'm a registered Republican, but I'm completely embarrassed of the Republicans.
Yeah.
I mean, should I register as an independent now? I don't know what I actually should do. I feel like what a joke the Republicans have been. I hear all this big talk and nothing happens.
It's all politics. They're all the same. They're all bought off by the special interest groups. They are.
Yeah. If you have politician in your career, then I think you're a liar. I hate that that's how it is, but that's what it's actually become. And it seems like, the more you want to, hey, let me help you out. As Ronald Reagan said, the scariest words in history are, hey, we're the government. We're here to help.
Right.
Those are the scary words.
True. And we didn't really glean our lessons from that at all either, from those kind of warnings.
Hey, I want to talk about something before we adjourn here, and I think this is really important, and it has to do with the supply chain issues that we're seeing in the news. We're seeing today where McDonald's is having to raise their prices regarding the supply, and it has to do with higher wages, the $15 an hour thing, and also supply chain issues that are happening here. And we're seeing in the news where they're saying, the supply chain issue has everything to do with two things. One, that more back to work. So we have a booming economy now, and they're ordering more things, and that's really what's causing the supply chain. And really, this is a good thing. We're hearing that one, and then we're also hearing that, coronavirus and lots of people, are not back to work yet because we're hearing that they're paid more money than they would be paid if they went to work. And I believe that's a thing that's happening as well. We're even hearing from the Biden administration that it has to do with people that are refusing to take the vaccination. In New York and Chicago, these two areas are set to lose a vast amount of their police and fire protection within the next couple of days, as a matter of fact, maybe even today. But here's a big thing that I've been learning about this supply chain issue that I hadn't heard before. As you know, Joe Biden came out, I think it was a week and a half ago, to say we're going to open up these ports in Los Angeles and Long Beach 24/7. So we're going to be able to unload these ships that are out there and so on. Well, Barry, the ships are still out there. We still have a problem here. I'm hearing that the ports still aren't actually operating 24/7. And there's a big unsaid thing that's happened here. Here in California, we have our own version of the EPA. It's called CARB, and that's an acronym. I don't have what the acronym is for, but how appropriate that it's called CARB. We passed two laws over the last few years, and one of them just went into effect at the beginning of 2020, and it's an emissions standard that progressively got higher and higher, which culminated in 2020 when we started to have these supply chain issues, when things started to not show up on our shelves. And what it is that it limits the amount of trucks that are on the road. And couple that with, and I'm going to go back into this, couple that with another law that passed a couple of years ago called AB5. AB5 was actually killed the gig economy here in California, where independent contractors like Uber drivers and things like that had to act more like they were employed by a larger company, and they were a lot of restrictions which put them out of business. So you put those things together, what's happened is it's limited the trucking fleet here on the commercial fleet side and also independent contractors by 50%. So
Wow.
50% of the trucks that were operating at the beginning of, up to the end of 2019 are no longer on the road.
Wow.
And can't be on the road. And as a result, what's happened is a lot of these large companies, let me see if I can name a couple of them here. A lot of these large companies that actually Joe Biden named many of them, Walmart and Amazon, just to name a couple of them, had figured out how to get around that by moving by actually contracting ships to move from the LA and Long Beach ports to ports on the other side of the Panama Canal. We're looking at places in Texas, places in Louisiana, other places. But as a result, that has increased the price of goods dramatically. We've seen where a container port was about $1,500 to ship. Now those container ports are over $17,000 to ship. And this is why. And that actually is equating to much higher prices at supermarkets and online. And so the story isn't being told of exactly how these prices, it's just COVID, it's people aren't going back to work. No, this has been a problem that's been in the making for some time. And some of the large companies here in the United States that just so happen to be in Joe Biden's White House to talk about these things. These guys have known that this was coming for some time. They are blaming it on something else when they've actually created this problem. I'll say this one last thing is that the carbon emission problem here in California. I live by a freeway, and there is soot and everything that I sweep up off of my porch all the time. It is a problem, but shutting down our economy because of green initiatives that really, to me, are just to get people elected because they're saying the right thing, doesn't seem like a viable solution for us right here. And this is a big mess. I really wish that the media and our government would tell the truth about exactly what's going on, because if we don't know the truth, we can be easily manipulated. And really, this is destroying people's livelihoods. It's destroying people's family life and our way of life. Something needs to be done here.
What I wonder is, though, you're right about, our media is broken. Maybe they are starting to feel some pressure, but so like I said before, so we move more to podcasting, get better news, more long form news, get more details on things. What I'm wondering about what you just said, though, more immediately is, why isn't like the Teamsters Union being very vocal about this and educating people on this issue?
It's interesting, Barry, because what I'm seeing is that the Teamsters Union has been involved in this plot, and I'm not exactly sure why. They're in the middle of all of this, but it seems like it's destroying they're shooting themselves in the foot. I don't really get it myself.
There's more to the story there.
I think so. I think so. And I think it's one of those follow the money kind of things that's going on right here. Is there more money for the leaders in the Teamsters Union? I don't know. The Longshoremen's Union is another one that's involved with the docks. So the problem isn't just unloading those ships. The problem is what to do once you've unloaded it. And we also are seeing video of trucks that are backed up for miles, that are parking in neighborhoods around these docks, that are blocking driveways so people can't get to work. This is a total mess. And really what's happened here is California is really turning into a third world country. This is a total mess. No one seems to be doing anything about it. And the lies are abounding. It's really quite a thing.
Yeah. I talked to Scott I was in Nashville, texted you and said, how nice that was. Your brother, Scott, not mine. I hadn't talked to him in a long time. It was great to hear from him, but he's loving California. He's like, everything's going good. Job's going well. Everything works. So cause you're always like, California, oh my God, and he's totally cool.
I know. I don't, I talked to Scott about this a lot. The one thing that he really likes, that I really like about California, is the just our environment of sunshine all the time. And we get on our motorcycles and we ride to the most beautiful places on earth. I think these are things you can really get addicted to here in California. But when you take a look at how they have done nothing to really promote safety here in California, again, defunding the police, defunding the gang units, the heroin epidemic that's happening, the homeless epidemic that's happening, the sheer amount of pollution that's on the streets that's blowing around. When the wind blows here, clouds of dirt and debris are flying around. It doesn't seem like it's that anybody's working on getting it any better. We hear all the time about millions of pounds of raw sewage that somehow gets let out into our oceans and our beach fronts. It happens all the time over here. That's gross. So and then we've got the fire situation, which nearly burnt down Los Angeles a few years back. That is completely preventable. And when you take a look at how our state government and the electric company are very much involved in preventing those things from happening. And then we've got the water shortage as well that's happening. And people are paying the highest amount of taxes of any of the states that are here. You put all that together, it's a lot. And you got to think, okay, how am I seeing it differently than him? I'm not really sure. But I personally don't think that we should have to pay taxes to get nothing.
Oh, I totally agree with you. More immediately, how is the rain situation right now?
Well, we had rain on Monday, and that was the first time I've seen rain for several months, actually. And I've been reading a day of rain.
I've been reading a lot about it, though. Like they said, on the one hand, it's put out the fires, but now you have to worry about mudslides. I thought it was raining all week.
No, it rained on Monday, and then like yesterday, it was 90 degrees out here, and I was driving down the road, and everything is dry as a bone. I mean, I just think if you threw a cigarette out the window, where am I getting
these stories from? Though?
I don't know, maybe someplace else in California, but here in Los Angeles, it is a tinderbox, and I'm concerned about what would happen if somebody just threw a cigarette out the window.
Well, isn't this fire season for you guys?
Yes, it is.
For that very reason, it happens like every year. Yeah. Hey, dude, we should wrap up, man.
Yeah, we should. Actually, this has been, I could go on for hours, but yeah, we're coming up on our time here.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing trip through this whole thing. I loved the first show. We got into some really nitty gritty things here in the after show. We've had a good.
We did. Interesting. It is funny how these shows, individual shows, will take on their own identity as we wrap it up. The first show started and ended very good because we talked about a lot of positive stuff. Inspirational stuff.
Yes.
I think that's a really good way. That's how our show should intentionally always be. We had some nitty gritty in the middle, but we left all the nitty gritty for this after show. It's kind of funny. More often than not, we were really just BSing about stuff. We did I Love Lucy last week, for God's sakes,
I know. I saw, it's funny. I turned on Turner Classic Movies last night, and there was a movie with Lucille Ball on it. I just,
really?
She's everywhere now. Yeah.
You shared some interesting stuff about her and her career I did not know about last week. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I did too.
All right. Anything you want to part with there?
I just want to go back to the central theme here that we talked about from the first show, which is love, the self-sacrificing form of love. And I just think, that's the secret. Don't let them take that from you.
Right.
Build that up in your heart, because this is how we take back what is rightfully ours here in this country and here in this world. We need to keep up the good fight. And to me, that's the good fight. Stir that up in your heart. That's where true happiness is found. And I think that the whole theme of both shows, actually, even in the news, points to that. I'll say one last thing: that video of those dads taking back the school system. I cried for joy the first time that I saw that, and as we watched it today together, I thought that wasn't going to happen because I've already seen it, but it happened.
That was so good. And while you were talking, you said this. I made a note. I put it in my notes in quotes because I never know what to title these shows because we talk about so many different things throughout a show anyway. Mm-hmm. And I see the open rates and click-through rates and all that, and they tend to be higher on shows where I'm really nondescript. Like if I'll come up with a song title, "Good Times, Bad Times," and this one though, I already know the title, "Love of a Father." You said that.
Awesome.
You actually said that towards the end of the show, and I put it in my notes.
Love of the Father.
Yeah,
that's where it's all
at. Good
at.
Title, man.
Yes, indeed. I love it, Barry.
I love the conversation about Jewel up front too. And
Me too. That was great. Inspiring.
I hope that you listen to that. Oh my God, there's so much more to it than what I talked about.
Well, make sure you put a link to that in the show notes.
Good point. And I'll have to dig that up. I will. All right, brother. I hope that I think I'll be coming at you from the other house for the next 2 weeks. I'm not sure. Something like that.
Cool.
All right, buddy. I hope you have a great weekend.
Take care, man.
All right. Love you, bud.
Love you too.